So, hello everyone. My name is Lakshmi Nivas of Computer Science and Engineering branch of B section. So, today we are going to discuss about a tech talk based on the topic Python programming, and my topic for today is how to use MongoDB with Python. So let's get on to the slides quickly to know more about using how to use MongoDB with Python. So first of all, what do you mean by MongoDB? So MongoDB is a document-oriented NoSQL database used for high volume data storage. So here, MongoDB is a type of document-oriented platform and which is a non-SQL database, which here non-SQL database is called as a non-symmetrical way to store the data. Means it doesn't store the outside data in tables or columns or rows or in a structural way, but it stores in a non-SQL database for high data storage, high volume data storage. Instead of using tables, instead of using tables and rows in the traditional relational databases, MongoDB makes use of collections and documents. Means here we could understand that it doesn't store in tables or rows or columns. Rather than storing them in like that way, it stores completely in a single set of collections or single set of documents. So the next one is MongoDB is a database which came into light around mid 2000s, which has come into the existence in around mid 2000s, and MongoDB stores data in JSON-like documents. JSON-like documents are documents which is used to store data in a non-SQL database manner in MongoDB, which makes the database very flexible and scalable. Means JSON-like data documents are those documents which we can view immediately or we can access them freely. So that's how JSON-like document is used. We have a small note here that MongoDB is a type of tool that can manage document-oriented information, store or retrieve information. MongoDB is a tool. It could be non-SQL, it could be NoSQL database or SQL database, but MongoDB is a type of document-oriented database where it can manage document-oriented information, store or retrieve information. Okay, so let's move on to the next slide. More about MongoDB. So knowing more about MongoDB is a type of database which supports various types of information in the form of data under non-SQL database and source. MongoDB is also used for big data storage, big data applications, big data documents, big data collections, and it is also known for non-symmetrical form of stored data. Thus, it is NoSQL database. As we discussed in the earlier slide, that it can manage big data applications, store in documents and collections, and it is also known as non-symmetrical form of stored data. Thus, it is a NoSQL database. Organizations like Infosys, Wipro, Deloitte, Google, etc. companies can use MongoDB for ad hoc queries, indexing, load balancing, aggregation, server-side JavaScript execution, and other required user interface features. And set of documents are called as collections. Here, we store data in documents, and those set of documents, like in first document we store some data, in second document we store some data. If we merge all those documents together, then it becomes a big collection of documents, as simple as it is, which function as the equivalent of relational database tables. Collections can contain any type of data. You can retrieve or store, or you can you can store any type of data you want, which doesn't have any limit or restrictions. So you can contain any type of data, but restriction is the data in a collection cannot be spread across different databases. Like here, what it is saying is, what I mean to say is, you cannot spread the data into different databases. Like you can only store the data in MongoDB, NoSQL database, but not storing it in a SQL database in other databases. So the line says that, and Mongo shell acts as an interactive JavaScript interface to MongoDB, which allows users to query and update data. Here, as we all know that Python script mode, we can change anything in the code, because interactive mode we cannot change because it is a runtime compiler. So in Python script mode, we can change or we can update anything in the list of code. So similarly, the Mongo shell acts as an interactive JavaScript interface to MongoDB, which allow users to query and update data. As we discussed, we can update data and conduct administrative operations. Here, not only JavaScript, Python, C, and many multiple languages we can use script interface nodes in MongoDB. So let's go to the next slide. Yeah, PyMongo. As we were discussing about this is the main part of this PPT, that Python needs a Mongo driver to access the MongoDB database. Python needs a MongoDB driver to access the MongoDB database. Here, MongoDB driver is known as PyMongo. As we use MongoDB database in Python or Java or C or C++, we call it as, if it is used in Python, then we call it as PyMongo. When we use in Java, we'll call it as JMongo, like that. Pip is a tool which stands for Preferred Installer Program, which allows you to install and manage additional libraries which does not exist in standard library. Pip is a type of tool which is used to install, which is itself a software to install another software, is called as pip, and which allows you to install many additional libraries which does not exist in standard library. Testing PyMongo to check whether Mongo is installed or not. So this is a type of import is a function. Import is a type of function when we use in command prompt, when we install PyMongo in a command prompt or any other platform, to check whether MongoDB Python database is installed or not, you just have to open command prompt easily. Like here we can see that we have opened Python compiler here, py, and here in this first line we can see that import PyMongo. If we enter import PyMongo like this, when it continues to, after typing the import PyMongo line, after pressing the enter button, if it goes automatically into the next line without any error, that means that PyMongo is installed in your PC or laptop or etc. So that is how we check whether MongoDB Python is installed in your particular PC or laptop or not. So if the above program runs successfully with no errors, then it compiles that PyMongo is installed successfully and ready to use in CMD. So CMD is basically known as command prompt. As we discussed that, this line says if the import PyMongo runs successfully, then with no errors, it compiles PyMongo, then it says that it is installed in your computer, ready to use in command prompt. So let's go to the next slide. Creating a database. Creating a database in Python CMD. So to create a database in MongoDB, start by creating a Mongo client object, then specify a connection URL with the correct IP address and name of the database you want to create. Here, as an example, we can say that create a database called my database. For example, if we want to create a database, then we can take an example of my database. So import PyMongo. Here, firstly, import PyMongo. Then it goes to the next line. If the PyMongo is installed in your CMD, then only it comes to the next line. If it is not coming and it's showing some error, then your PyMongo is not installed properly in your computer. So before testing this, you have to install PyMongo correctly. So let's get into the example back. Import PyMongo, enter, next line. My client is equal to pymongo.mongo client. My client, pymongo.mongo client. This is in double quotations, MongoDB hash localhost -27017 hash double quotations. This is actually the basic URL which we have to remember it for running the program. So next line, my database means my DB is equal to my client square brackets of my database. As we want to create database called my database, we'll show it in square brackets, not parentheses, in square brackets with double quotations. Here in MongoDB, if the content exists, then only database can be created. If the content exists, or if it is existing in the particular database, then only the database can be created. Okay, let's go to the next slide. Creating a collection. As we discussed earlier, set of documents is called as collections. To create a collection in MongoDB, use database object and specify the name of the collection you want to create. MongoDB creates the collection if it does not even exist. So to create a collection in MongoDB, use database object and specify the name of the collection you want to create. MongoDB creates the collection if it does not even exist. If particular information does not exist too, if you want to create, then MongoDB database is the right platform to create the information which does not exist, and you can create according to you. Okay. An example, we can see that create a collection called customers. Means here we can enter like any other example, like customers, like bills, fruits, groceries, expenditures, anything. So here we have taken an example called customers. Create a collection called customers. Import PyMongo. It is the same basic structure from the import PyMongo line to my client, my DB, and my call. My call means my collection. Here, my collection means the collection which I required is customers. So my call equal to my database, my personal database, because the particular input does not exist. So I want to store it in Mongo database. So my database, square brackets, in double quotations, I have to enter customer in square brackets. So here in MongoDB, if the content exists, then only a database can be created. The content here is customers. If the customers is not entered in the square brackets, and if any white spaces are there, then database cannot be created. If we have customers or any other input, then database can be created easily. So let's go to the next slide. Insert into collection. Insert into collection. To insert a specific record or a document, as it is called as a MongoDB. To insert a record or a document is called as MongoDB into a collection. We use insert _1 open close parenthesis method. So to insert record, information, document, or any collection, we use a simple function which is called insert _1 double parenthesis method. The first parameter of the insert function is a dictionary containing the names or name and values or value, whether it could be singular or plural, of each field in the document you want to insert. Okay. Example, insert a record in the customers collection. So here, earlier slide, we have discussed that to create a collection called, to create a document called customers. So here we want to input some information inside the customers collection, documents. Collection is customers, and we want to input some record or data inside the customers collection, which is called as document. So import pymongo as it is. Next line, my client pymongo.mongo client, the URL, and my database is goes to my client, which is my database, again in the square brackets. My collection, which is my collection, is my database customers. And here, according to the question, that insert a record in the customers collection means my dictionary. If you want to store record, if you want to store record or documents in a collection, you have to mention dictionary. As we all know, dictionary contains a lot of information, lot of collections of words. So here we have to mention my dictionary. It is same in pymongo too. My dictionary equal to, in always we store data or record in flower brackets. Flower brackets, we enter specific sign name and specific and his address. So name John, address highway 37, means name is John, address is his address, highway 37. So X is equal to my collection dot insert _1 my dictionary. Here what does X mean is in my collection dot insert one is a function in which we are entering information about one person. So insert _1 means one person in my dictionary. So we have mentioned my dictionary, name John, and address 537. Insert _1 in my dictionary. Okay, let's get into the other slide. Insert multiple document without giving ID. So here in this we can see that to insert multiple documents into a collection in MongoDB, we use insert _many open close parenthesis method. The first parameter of the insert many method is a list containing multiple dictionaries. Earlier we have discussed that we have inserted only one dictionary. We have only inserted information about a person in a dictionary, about only one person. But here we can create as many as we want, as I have mentioned here. List containing dictionaries with the data you want to insert. Example, import PyMongo. The first line is as usual. The second line is also as usual. Third line, my database is equal to my client, my database. And here my collection, my database, customers, my list. Here earlier we discussed about my dictionary, which is only about 1%. Here my list means list of employees or list of people with some proofs like name and address. Name Amy, address Apple Street 652. Like we have many like Hannah, Michael, Sandy, Betty, Richard, Susan, Vicky, Ben, William, Chuck, and Viola. Like these are the people whose IDs are name and address with those addresses, and we store this mylist data in square brackets. In between these square brackets, the data will be entered in flower brackets. We have to remember that. So again, x is equal to my collection dot insert underscore. This time not one. This time it is many, and open close parenthesis. In that open close parenthesis, my list. My list means list of all those name and address about the information. So comment, print list of the ID values of the inserted documents. Print, as you all know that we can print all those information. Print open close parenthesis x dot inserted underscore IDs. Those are the IDs of the particular input. So this is about insert multiple documents without giving IDs, only the name and the address. So let's go to the next slide. So here, insert multiple documents with specifying IDs. Specifying IDs means simply assigning them the sign numbers. Assigning people with numbers like 1, 2, 3 or any other ID numbers as we wish, as we want. If you do not want MongoDB to assign unique IDs for your document, you can specify the ID field. When you insert the document or documents, remember that the values has to be unique. Two documents cannot have the same. Here, what he's saying is, for one record, it should have a unique ID like 1. If a person called John is having ID number 1, then he should only have the number 1. Then again Peter 2, Amy 3, Hannah 4, Michael 5, so on. Here 1 cannot repeat, means John, if it is John is 1 and Peter is 1, then it is not going to print the result or output. So everyone should have a unique ID number so that to identify it easily and quickly. As the MongoDB NoSQL database complies that it is a type of database which can be retrieved or stored or can be viewed so easily, and maneuverability is also easy, which is MongoDB PY. So this is a list with assigned ID numbers. As we can all see, it is from 1 to 10. And the structure of the program here, is same as it is. Let's go to the next slide. Yeah, it is still 14. I'm sorry, it's still 14. Ben, William, Chuck, and Viola. Here in X, my collection dot insert underscore many, my list, as it is in the previous slide we saw. Print list of the underscore ID values of the inserted document. Print X dot inserted IDs. It is similar to the earlier slide. So find one. To select a particular document from a MongoDB collection, we say or we use find one function. Find one function method returns the first occurrence in the MongoDB collection. This find one function is a type of function which, if we want to find a particular ID or a particular record of a person, then we can use this function. So in example, we can see that first document in the collection of the customer, import PyMongo. The whole 1, 2, 3, 4 lines are the same for any type of program. From here, we are mentioning the find one function to find a person's record. So x is equal to my collection, in my collection dot find a person's record, means find one record, open close parenthesis, print the x required output. So here we can see that import PyMongo, MongoDB. It is the same example that I've entered here. Here we can see the output in the CMD, as you can all see this. ID 1, name John, address height. Here find one means it will show the first. Here we can see that ID is 1. Here find one means it shows the first record in my list. Shows the first record with ID 1 in my list. That is how find function is used. So next, let us go to the next slide. Find all. Find all means printing all the records, means the list, the whole list. To select the data from MongoDB collection, we can use find function. Earlier we have mentioned that find one function. Find one function means it prints only first name record, first ID, first name, and first address of the person. Here find all means it prints all the list, the whole list and all the records of the list. To select the data from MongoDB collection, we can use find function. This function returns all the data stored in the MongoDB collection. We use empty query so that it displays all the data. We here are not mentioning any query like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, find 1, find 2, find 3, 5, 4, find 5. Like we are leaving it as an empty query so that it prints all the record in the list. Example, return all the documents in the customer's collection and print each document. So this is the example we'll write in the program, the form of program. Import PyMongo. These first 4 lines are as usual. For X in my collection, find, only find, so that it prints all the list, and print X. Here you are running for loop. For means for in X, you have to print all the records in the list. So you're using for loop for X in my collection, find, print X. If you print X value, then you'll get all the IDs, as you all can see here. As you all can see here in this CMD example, I mean the screenshot. Here it has printed each and every record of my list, my collection, 1 to 14. So this is how we use find all function. So let's get on to the next slide. Return only some fields. Return only some fields means the fields which we require, which we only require, which we want to search somebody's information. So if we want to search somebody's information and we don't want ID number, if you don't want output, if you don't want ID number in the output, you can use return only some fields function. Like in this type, you can print only required amount of fields. Fields are nothing but ID, name, and address as per your need, like returning address and name without IDs, as we have discussed. Returning address, name, and IDs. Here we can also use find function. We can also use find function, but we have to mention that we don't want IDs. How we could mention that we don't want IDs? We'll see in this example. import by Mongo, my client, my database, my collection. In that my collection, my database, customers. For X in my call. Here also we use for loop. We run for loop here. For X in my collection dot find open parenthesis flower braces. In that flower braces, nothing is entered, so that it prints all the list with mentioning ID is 0, name is 1, address is 1. It means that ID 0 means it does not print ID. We want 0 IDs to be printed. Name, we want name to be in the output, and address 1. We want address to be in the output. So print X, as we could see here in the CMD screenshot. Without IDs, it has given an output only with the fields name and address. So this is how we use return only some fields. Means some fields means any two fields eradicating another field. Like you can eradicate name or address. Like if you want ID and address to be as an output without name, then ID 1, address 1, name 0. Like if you don't want address 0, name 1, ID 1, like that. So let's go into the next slide. Another example of return only some fields. Another example. The example will include address from the result. Sorry, exclude address from the result. So here exclude, as we have discussed earlier, that excluding any one field from the list to get the output means all those 4 lines, as it is in any program. We just have to remember that the URL is a big challenge to remember. So again, here for loop is a for loop we are using. For X in my collection dot find white spaces, which prints everything, comma, flower braces, address 0. Address 0 means it does not print address. Rather than printing address, it prints name 1 and ID 1. So print X, we can see that in the CMD output, command prompt output, it has printed ID field and name field from 1 to 14, which it does not print address, because as we have mentioned that address is equal address colon 0. So this is how an return only some fields works. So let's get into the other slide. Yeah, MongoDB query with a filter. MongoDB query with a filter. Filter the result. While going through the data in the MongoDB collection, if we want to search a particular ID with address or name, then we use find operation to return the complete details of that ID with inputting at least one object. So find is our query here. As we have discussed that query can be a function like find. So find a document with address parklane38. If we have only one information or else one field to identify the whole information of that particular person with his ID and name, then we can use find with mentioning at least one field. So import by Mongo, my client, my database, my collection, my query. Here my query is address. I'm mentioning here address colon parklane38, so that the system identifies that parklane38 means parklane38, the person who's having parklane38 in his fields, one of his fields, then it is going to print the whole information about him, that ID, the name, and also it prints address too. So my document, in my document, my collection dot find my query, finding your query from the collection. Here also we use for loop X in my document, print X. So you can see here that it has given an output of part length 38, whose address, who is Ben, and his ID is number 11. So this is how MongoDB query with a filter works. Mentioning a query is most important in this MongoDB query with a filter. So let's go to the next slide. Advanced query. Advanced query is used to get a particular ID info by returning a query with complex inputs like finding an address starting with S or any other letter as required. Here earlier we have discussed that we are entering a query to find a particular ID. So here we are entering S as our query because we don't know anything about him, but we just know about his first letter or his name with S. So here we can search on any type of input object like address or name or ID. We use an operator called $GT. We use $GT operator to run this program. Example, find documents where the address starts with the letter S or higher. So import by Mongo, my client, my database, my collection. My collections means customers from my database. My query. In my query, you are mentioning your query as address. In that address, you have a letter which you want to, with a letter you want to find the particular person's ID. Then you use an operator called $GT. In the $GT column, S will be your main query. S is your query. Then my document is equal to my collection dot find my query for loop X in my document. So here we can see that it has given an output with our query S. Yes, it has given an output with our query which is S. So this is how we used advanced query. Not only S, we can also use other letters too. And let's go to the other slide. Sort the result. Sort the result means use the sort method to arrange data in the ascending to descending order. Sorting the data means sorting the data from big to small or small to big, like according to the as we can see in the example that from A to Z, like in an alphabetical manner, A, B, B, C, H, J, M, P, R, S, S, V, V, W. That is an alphabetical order as we can see in the CMD screenshot. Use the sort method to arrange data in the ascending to descending order or vice versa. It takes everything in alphabetical order, which is a default order arrangement. Example, sort the result alphabetically by name. Okay, alphabetically by name. If we want to sort the data in numerical way, then we can mention our query as ID. Or else, if you want to arrange the data in alphabetical order, like an address, then you can enter your query as address. Here we have taken an example, best example as name as our query. So for X in my document, print X. So here we can see that the whole name list have been arranged in an ascending order, means in an alphabetical order from A to W. From A, B, B, C, H, J, M, P, R, S, S, V, V, W, which is in ascending alphabetical order. So this is how you use sort the result method. So let's jump into the other slide. Sort descending. Earlier we have discussed about sort the result. Here sort descending. By using 1 in the sort method, we can reverse the ascending result into descending order in MongoDB table. So example, sort the result reverse alphabetically by name. Here also we have taken it as name. So my client, my database, my collection. So here my document, in your my document, in your collection, find and print everything, sort it in descending order. How do you sort it in a descending order? If the collection is in ascending order, if you want to sort it into the descending order, then you have to enter by using -1, as we have mentioned in the statement in the above. So name, comma, -1. -1 means it prints the result, everything in a reverse order, like in descending order. So for X in my document, print X. So the next slide is delete a document. Deleting a document is a type of function. To delete a single document from the MongoDB table, we use delete only one document method. This delete one document method is a query object defining which document to delete. Example, delete the document with the address mountain 21. Again, we are mentioning our query as one field like address, so which is mountain 21. You want if your query is a single field and you want to delete the whole ID, means the whole record from your table or list, then we can use delete document by mentioning at least one field in the query. So input PyMongo, my client, my DB, my call, my query is relating address mountain 21. So condition is my collection from my collection dot delete one query, which is my query. For next in my collection dot find all function is to print everything except the address with 21, mountain 21. Print X. As we can see that there is no mountain 21 here. You can all check here that there is no mountain 21. We can see that ID number with 4 and name something and address mountain 21 has been executed or eradicated from the table or list, as we all require that because delete document is used for that. Here delete one means you can only delete one record from the list. One means only one. You cannot record multiple records from the list or table. So let's go to the next slide. Delete collection. So it is similar to the earlier slide, but we have minute changes. You can delete a table or a collection as it is called MongoDB, as you all know that. By using drop method, you can delete the whole table. Yes, the whole table we can delete by using drop function. Delete customers collection means the whole collection from the list or table. So the procedure is as usual: import PyMongo, my client, my DB, my collection, my DB, customers, and my call dot drop function. Drop function means it eradicates every single record from the list or table. So my call dot drop all. So here you can see in this CMD screenshot that not even a single record is in the output, because we have mentioned here that we don't want any collection to get as an output. We want to delete the whole collection. Then we didn't get any output here. So this is one of the simple function used in PyMongo. So let's go to the next slide. Limit the result. Limit the result. To limit the result in MongoDB, we use limit underscore method limit function. This returns the required amount of ID is required. Means here in the limit function, we can say that up to some extent you want to print, up to some extent you want to return the IDs or the records, then you use limit function, which limits the documents to print till only 5 documents, as we have mentioned in the example. Limit the result to only return 5 documents. So it limits the whole table till 5 and then eradicates everything from 6 to 14 and only prints 1 to 5. So my client, my database, my collection from customers, my result. Here my result equal to my collection dot find all. In those find all, we are limiting till only 5 records. Only 5 records we are mentioning as our query. So for x in my result, print x. As we print x, then we are going to get only 5 records as an output, eradicating the rest all 6 to 14 records. So this is how we use limit the result method or function. So let's go to the next slide. So that's all for this PPT. So I hope that you all understood this PPT, like MongoDB with Python, using MongoDB with Python. So thanks for everyone watching this PPT presentation. And thank you for the college management for giving me such opportunity to make PPT on this topic. Thank you, everyone. Thank you all.